Hi everyone, Amy here. I have been putting off making this video for a long time simply because it's about the worst period in my life, which I term the dark days. Um, but I made a promise to God that if He brought me through the storm, that I would try to be a beacon of hope to others who have similar health issues. So to say that 2015 was the worst year of my life is really saying something, because in 2011 I had 7 funerals, 5 of whom were family members. They thought they felt a lump or found a lump in my breast, and my husband of almost 11 years walked out on me, giving me less than 24 hours notice. So to say that 2015 was the worst year of my life is really saying something. So the whole year was tough. See, it started out, I had a really bad, can't remember if it was a sinus infection or something, but it was really bad and it just went on and on. Then in April, I had some really concerning digestive issues that were a little worrisome. Then that passed, and then in the spring, I had a really horrible, I don't even know what to call it. They still don't know what it was. They said it might be a lupus flare, even though I don't have lupus. But basically, I woke up one morning and my shoulders, I couldn't lift my arms without a lot of pain. Initially, I thought it was because I had been working the night before, lifting stuff. But I also had some other symptoms that were worrisome. And I'm not an alarmist by any means with my health, because I have so many different symptoms at any one time. If I went to the ER every time I had, you know, bad symptom, I would just be there all the time. So I'm not an alarmist, but I thought, you know what, this could be a heart attack, because I've heard that heart attacks are different in women, shoulder pain, all kinds of stuff. So I went to the ER, and I also started getting a rash on my legs, and they weren't sure what it was. They did, chest x-ray and everything, and my heart was fine. And then as the days progressed, I started to get really horrible joint pain. I mean, to the point that I could barely walk. And I went back to the ER, and there were like 8 doctors trying to figure out what was going on. I was tested for Lyme disease once again, lupus, all kinds of things, and West Nile virus. And then they said, well, it could be Stevens-Johnson syndrome. That was like one of the worst things that it could be. It's basically where your skin falls off, and you can die from it. And a lot of times it's caused by a reaction to medicine. I'm thinking, well, and sometimes it doesn't happen till months later. So it was a really scary period in my life, because they didn't know what was going on, and I'm like, I think I'm going to end up walking with a cane, if not in a wheelchair. I could barely move. It was hard to get in and out of the bathtub, all kinds of things. And all I could think of was, I'm going to be an even bigger burden. How am I going to adjust to this? My hands were so painful. It was too painful to even hold a book and read. I think that's when I started listening to audiobooks. But one of the worst pains was in my right hand, and it was absolutely excruciating. It felt like someone had hit me with a hammer, and I was thinking of people who have been bitten by venomous snakes and how they describe that pain, like, they've been hit with a hammer. And it also felt like I had tight rubber bands around my fingers. It was excruciating. They gave me muscle relaxers. They gave me oxycodone. Nothing would take the edge off of it. I remember laying in bed one night and I thought I heard a noise, and I'm thinking, I wouldn't even have the strength to pull the trigger of my gun. My hands were so bad. I had to use both hands just to spray my nose spray. So that was a very scary period in my life. And I kept going back to the ER because I just had this gut feeling that if they didn't figure out what it was soon enough, I was going to have some long-term or permanent damage in my hands. And as I predicted, I do have some residual issues with my fingers, but that eventually passed. So they have no idea what it was, whether it can come back. But that was, like I said, that was a really scary period in my life. I'm a writer, and I was thinking, I'm not going to be able to type. I'm going to have to do, voice to text. And so anytime there's a big change in my health, the one thing I'm thinking of, okay, how am I going to adapt to deal with this? So I was trying to research and figure out how I could make my life easier and less difficult on my parents, who really take care of me, and I'm so blessed. Fast forward to October of that year, my chest wall syndrome was really acting up. That's the simpler term for costochondritis, which is inflammation of the cartilage in the rib cage. And I've had that since I was 19. I sustained workout injuries. So that was really flaring up. It felt like two meat hooks in my rib cage. I could barely breathe. It was so painful. Another big thing that happened, stupid me, I don't always make the smartest decisions. I decided to go off of my antidepressant, which was prescribed to me many years ago by a wonderful doctor, but he thought that it could help my fibromyalgia, because a lot of that is in the brain with the neurotransmitters, and catch any depression that it might be causing. Unfortunately, that medicine, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say that in this video, but we'll just say it rhymes with Axel, is very difficult to get off of. And there have been lawsuits because doctors, or the company didn't divulge that there could be some really serious withdrawal issues. They actually likened the withdrawal effects to coming off of heroin. So anyway, that was a really stupid thing to do, but I'm like, I'm tough, I can do this. I was doing great for a couple of weeks, and then I started to have some serious symptoms that kind of fell under the health, what am I trying to say? The syndrome called serotonin syndrome, and you can die from that. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to go back on it. And I was really angry with the pharmaceutical company, and I was actually trying to find someone who would take my case to sue them. Actually, they've already been sued, so unfortunately I missed the boat there. And I'm not a sue happy person, but that can destroy lives. The fact that withdrawing from it can basically kill you. So that kind of started a downward spiral. Then with my chest wall syndrome, and then with the weather change, I always have issues, but started to have sinus and allergy issues. One symptom I absolutely cannot deal with is not being able to breathe. Um, it freaks me out, and I can't breathe that well anyway because I have chronic rhinitis and a deviated septum, but I can actually breathe really well in different areas of the country, just not in yucky Ohio weather. So I was having a hard time breathing through my nose. Then my asthma acted up, another breathing issue. I also have swallowing issues, which kind of is what started my chronic fatigue syndrome when I caught a virus at a concert. And so I've had messed up vocal cords, so it's difficult to swallow. So all of that put together made me feel like I was suffocating, drowning. And then another thing that that started happening, or really worsened, was my anxiety was off the charts. I had all this energy, not good energy, pulsing through my body and through my brain. It was like a neon sign going on and off. Couldn't relax. Everything just overwhelmed me and freaked me out. So all of this put together, just it was. I don't even know the right word. Horrific's not even, I think, strong enough. But because of all of these issues that made me feel like I was drowning and suffocating, I started to get really claustrophobic. Like I couldn't even sit in the bathtub for 5 minutes without freaking out. Being in a car was freaking me out, in a closed-in space. I couldn't watch anything or read anything that had anything to do with water. I love sharks and shark stories. I couldn't listen to, I was starting to listen to different sounds. Couldn't listen to anything water related. It freaked me out. I was literally pacing my house like a trapped animal, wild-eyed. I couldn't sleep, so I would go from the couch and I would drag my air filter that my parents bought me to try to help my allergies or whatever was going on. I would lay on the couch and with my air filter and my binaural beats for different issues, whatever was worse at that time, for asthma, nasal congestion, anxiety, all sorts of things. And I was doing all this research, and I'm thinking, okay, I need a humidifier. Let's put some moisture in the air. And then I'm like, oh no, that's gonna trigger my asthma. So anyway, I was just like a trapped animal pacing the house, going back and forth from the bed to the couch. I was scared to eat anything or much of anything or drink much of anything because I do have a lot of food sensitivities, and I didn't want to make any of my issues worse. So my parents would bring me food. I would hardly eat anything. I would eat maybe a can of tuna and a little bit of soup in a day. I lost a ton of weight. I looked like a Holocaust victim. I was doing all this research and taking all this homeopathic stuff, which is safe, pretty safe. But then I was using, it's a gel, it's an anti-inflammatory gel for pain. So I was rubbing that on my chest. I was taking like ibuprofen, all kinds of things, Benadryl, just mixing it all together. And then I found blood in my stool. I was freaking out. But then I realized it was probably from one of the antibiotics that I had, or one of the medicines that I had. Um, so just a whole bunch of things going on. Like I said, I was mixing a lot of over-the-counter medicine, which concerned me because all I could think of was like Heath Ledger and different people who have died from accidental overdoses. Um, so I was in bad shape. I and I couldn't do much of anything. I was just at a standstill. I could not do anything. I was so sick. All I did was I would just sit at the computer and or do things on my iPad, but I couldn't find joy in anything. Let's see, trying not to leave anything out. And originally I was gonna do this video in parts, but I wanted to get it over with, and I didn't want to interrupt the consistency or the rhythm. So I apologize that it's long, but you can watch it in parts. So I was in bad shape. I was looking up different things on my symptoms, and all I could do was focus on my symptoms. I didn't want to, but that's what was happening. I felt trapped in my body, and I would not wish that feeling on anybody. It's the worst feeling in the world because there's nowhere you can go to escape that. You're stuck in your body. I literally felt like I was laying in a coffin. So I even started writing churches and asking them to put me on their prayer list. And I was reading devotionals for healing. And like I said, I was just a huge mess. I went to a chiropractor to try to help my chest wall syndrome, my ribs. I went to an acupuncturist, and that was great, but I still had all of this, sorry, that keeps popping up, all of this energy, and I didn't know what it was. I couldn't describe it. I've had it for years, just this energy in my chest and in my body, and not in a good way. Finally, my chiropractor tells me, I am really sorry, but I don't think there's anything else I can do for your ribs and everything. This isn't really helping, but, and this is when the tide turned. He said, I think you might be suffering from adrenal fatigue. Now, there are a lot of doctors who don't believe in adrenal fatigue. I don't understand why, because I went through it. He's like, you have been under so much stress in the last few years, and I really think that's what's going on. So I started researching, and basically everybody knows what adrenaline is, right? But I was in this constant state of fight or flight. Like if you narrowly miss being in a car accident and you're all hyped up, that's how I was 24/7. I was running on adrenaline, that's it. My body was just producing too much of it. So I started researching all of the ways to heal adrenal fatigue. I started doing everything I could. I started taking different teas, but I tried not to take or drink any tea that would have anything in it that would amp me up. Oh, to backtrack, I was going to make notes, but I didn't. I was in such bad shape with thinking these were my allergies. I I was thinking about that I was going to have to give my beloved dog away. That's how bad I was. Um, so I started doing all this research, and I I did foot reflexology with my. I have a really nice foot massager. I was. Let's see what else. I was taking different supplements, like or not supplements, the herb ashwagandha, which is really good for anxiety. I was doing my essential oils. Um, I, believe it or not, I cut out all pop. Um, then I was researching other things that could cause anxiety, and I came across magnesium deficiency. A lot of people actually have a magnesium deficiency, but they just don't realize it. So I started taking magnesium, and I got a magnesium spray that I was using. Then I would take baths with Epsom salt. For a while, I could only stay there for a couple of minutes, but I just did it as long as I could. I started listening to more and more binaural beats, isochronic tones. I can't really explain the science behind them, but they are miraculous, and they really helped save my life. I was listening to self-hypnosis videos for anxiety, and I really need to thank this woman. I think her name is Jody Whiteley. And one sentence that she had in there in her thing was, "You're still here. After all you've been through, you're still alive." And I was praying, and one night I sat down on my bed and I said, "Lord, you know, I can't imagine that you would bring me to the storm, not to bring me through it." And I'm sorry, I got to keep backtracking. I was going to write notes, but then I'm like, no. So anyway, to backtrack a little bit, I was so bad. I was literally thinking, I can't live like this anymore. I was seriously contemplating suicide, writing my own obituary. I could not quiet that anxiety in my head. At one point, I have a 38 in my nightstand that my dad brought for me several years ago. Brought it over due to some crime in my neighborhood. So at one point he's like, and he knew I was in a bad place. He's like, "Do I need to come and get that?" And I said, "No, I'll be okay." Because I love life. But I'm like, I can't live like this the rest of my life. I can't do anything. It was a living hell. It was like Groundhog Day being stuck in hell every single day. So it was really horrible. But I started researching, and also one night I actually came across an article from a woman who tried to commit suicide with a 38, and she said that she glimpsed hell. Now, I'm not saying that people who commit suicide are going to hell, but it just really spoke to me. I felt like God was speaking to me, saying, you know, you're not done on this earth yet. So I kept the faith, and I told him, I said, if you bring me through the storm, I'm going to try to be a beacon of hope to others who have these health issues. So I started doing all of these different things to address my adrenal fatigue. And at some point, I think a little earlier, I contacted a friend of mine on the phone, and she's a counselor. She was really concerned about me, but she she said, "I think you need to be on an anti-anxiety medication." So I talked to my nurse practitioner, and she put me on that. And I will tell you, it was like magic immediately. It just really calmed me. And to backtrack, they also gave me in the ER a medicine that helps with, it's an antihistamine, but it's also an anti-anxiety medicine. So anyway, I thought my life was over, but I started doing all of these things. Um, and I started, and it wasn't fast. And then, by any means, it was a very gradual process. But eventually, the sunshine started to peek through those clouds, and I started to feel better. That all of that energy started to go away, and I started to get better. And a few months later, I'm on a plane, an enclosed plane with a lot of people going all the way across the country to Vegas. Vegas can be overstimulating to healthy people, but I went there and I was fine. So I went from, not being able to even sit in my bathtub for 5 minutes to getting on a plane and flying across the country. So I just want to let people know there is healing for anxiety and these other issues. I should also say that I am not calm by nature. I am very intense, very high strung, and never ever thought I would be able to relax. Ever. I'm like, there's just no way I'm going to heal from this. So, I just want to put that out there, that if I can find healing and be able to relax, then anybody can. So one of my goals was to be able to sit on the couch and watch TV without doing anything. I realized that I was keeping myself busy all of the time to run away from the anxiety. Didn't realize I had anxiety until I had to stop everything. That sounds like a simple goal. I mean, who doesn't just watch TV and veg out and not do anything? But I always had to be doing something while I watched TV to get my mind off of stuff. But I'm now able to sit there and, just watch TV. Usually I don't, because I do like multitasking. And I also went to a shark movie with my parents with lots of water, and I was fine. And I'm thinking, people in here have no idea how I wouldn't have been able to do this months ago. And since then, I've published my novel, paperback, my one novel. I wrote my first kids book and got that published. I'm not gonna lie, anxiety is usually still at my doorstep. It's like, standing there waiting for me to open the door and invite it in, but I'm not going to. I'm still listening to my binaural beats and everything, and it's hard to rewire your brain after years of bad mental dialogue, like be anxious, oh, let's worry about this. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to take a long time to rewire your brain, but it is possible. Sorry. I feel like I've left some stuff out, believe it or not. But I just want to let everyone know that there is hope and there is healing, and eventually that sun is going to peek through those dark clouds. So thank you for watching. This was really, I've been dreading this for a long time. Really wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I think it's okay for us to remember our past, and it's okay to visit. I have a saying though, don't stay there too long. Don't unpack your luggage. Just visit. Don't stay there. Because we do learn from the past and it keeps us humble. So thank you for watching. Um, healing prayers and thoughts to everybody.